Jacksonville officials want to buy out homeowners in a lowlying South Shores neighborhood that was swamped during Hurricane Irma to end a cycle of flooding that began years ago. The sales, they would be voluntary, not through condemnation, would be a chance for owners of some of 73 city-targeted properties to rebound from flood damage Hurricane Irma delivered in September. But reactions among owners are so complex and full of feeling that it's unclear how many will ultimately agree to sell. "At this point, I'm pissed," said Bobby Back, who said he paid for his own engineering plans for work on city-owned property that could have helped protect his home, which he said needs more than $100,000 in flood repairs. "We have been after the city for years, to address the issue back there." He and others said they'll listen closely at a neighborhood meeting that City Councilwoman Lori Boyer scheduled to start at 6 p.m. Thursday at San Marco Preservation Hall, 1652 Atlantic Boulevard. Whatever happens then could inform the city's response to flooding issues that are expected to multiply in lowlying neighborhoods as rising sea levels slowly affect the St. Johns River and drainage systems feeding into it. Like many neighborhoods around town, Irma's record-setting water levels inundated large sections of South Shores, a 1920s vintage community off Atlantic Boulevard west of Bishop Kenny High School. But more than a year before the hurricane, city engineers mulled a series of possible responses to more routine nuisance flooding that didn't hurt houses but filled some roads when tides were high. 3 of 4 plans for keeping the roads clear involved simply building up Southampton Road, a road in the shadow of Interstate 95's rebuilt Overland Bridge, as well as raising or changing smaller streets in the neighborhood abutting the St. Johns River. The city didn't choose any of those options, which would have cost $2.5 million to $3.2 million and shifted water onto people's yards without addressing the reason it first accumulated. A fourth unused option would have involved acquiring and clearing Back's home and all the lots on 2 square blocks behind Marginoff Park, an open space along Southampton dedicated in 1931 by the now-vanished city of South Jacksonville. That was estimated to cost $6.5 million, which is 3 times the property's market value. The plan the city is pursuing now could clear a larger area, maybe about 7 blocks, although the new approach covers portions of some blocks and isn't directly comparable. The cost for the new plan isn't known yet, since no one knows how many owners will want to sell. But unlike last year, city officials are counting on a flood mitigation grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to cover about 3/4 of the cost. Using FEMA money bars the city from condemning property, so the project will depend on getting people to choose to work with the city. Boyer said the city won't pay the inflated prices that are routine in condemnation, but will pay market prices for houses as they were before the hurricane. The area the city picked to clear is relatively cheap, with a number of homes worth less than $100,000, less than half the average for Northeast Florida, although others are worth much more. If enough people agree to sell, Boyer said, streets and other infrastructure that served those homes can be removed too. "We want to return the area to a natural wetland," she said. "We want to return it to its floodplain, wetland state, allow it to receive the water from the river that it once did and seems to want to again." Boyer said she asked Mayor Lenny Curry's office to help set up talks with state and federal emergency managers about a solution for the area after Irma, and those managers said they could act quickly on a grant application. She said flooding in the area got her attention in 2015, where New Askance floods lingered more than a week. "We have got to do something in this area, we just can't let this continue to happen," Boyer said. "This is an opportunity for these property owners to be made whole and to go take their investment and put it someplace else where they're not going to have this problem." Whether to take that offer isn't a simple decision, said some owners who've received leaflets from the city inviting them to the meeting Thursday. "This land has been in my wife's family for 150 years. It's going to be devastating to her if they sell," Back said. The couple built their home on B Street in 2012, on land where her grandparents built the 1920s shotgun house. Back said it was where he and his wife had wanted to grow old, and they haven't decided whether they're ready to leave. Others have more short-term considerations. Roberta Adams said she and her husband, Alexander, supplement their retirement by buying and flipping a house each year, and just last month they closed on a 2-bedroom, 1943 vintage house that they and their grandson have been getting ready for renovations. They have prices for a new roof and windows, air conditioning and rewiring, but they need to know how much the city is willing to pay, and how fast, before deciding to whether to give the house a makeover. Next door, R.D. Jackson has lived in her small 3-bedroom house more than 20 years. She said her home is alright, and she doubts she could find a decent place to move for the little amount her place would likely bring. I can't go and buy another house like that, Jackson said. If the city's land purchase removes people from homes they can't replace, she said, you're creating a poverty situation where it didn't exist. Even paying market prices can be a touchy subject. Carl McCall, whose home along Southampton was near a launching spot for rescue boats after Irma, said his house was worth a lot more before the state tore down homes across the street to rebuild the Overland Bridge with equipment whose jarring vibrations shook his building. Previously in Jacksonville, FEMA has paid to buy out individual homeowners whose homes were flooded so repeatedly they became a drag on the National Flood Insurance Program, but trying to buy out blocks of a neighborhood is unusual here. But it's been done before in places ranging from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to New Orleans and New York, and there are lessons to draw from those, said Jessica Granis, Adaptation Program Manager at the Georgetown Climate Center in Washington. For example, Granis said cities using FEMA money in large efforts sometimes don't realize until midway through their projects how many restrictions they've agreed to follow. Using federal money should be a thought-through process so that you can maximize the benefits, she said. At least in places, people planning the project should expect a neighborhood that looks like a checkerboard of cleared land and holdout houses, said Thomas Reppert, a coastal planning specialist for Florida Sea Grant, a research and education program based at the University of Florida. I can darn near guarantee you not everyone will agree to sell, Reppert said. But to build buy-in, Granis said there might be ways to sweeten the offer slightly, maybe by pairing FEMA funds with an offer from some community development fund if a block agreement can be reached. In New York, people taking buyout payments to leave a section of Staten Island battered by Sandy in 2012 were offered incentives to remain within New York 5 boroughs. Steve Patterson 904-359-4263